そこの坊ちゃんぐらいは殺して逃げる手もあるが。殺す？僕を？
そんなこと万が一にもありませんわ。ここにリーチ様がいる以上、よくても自分一人が逃げ延びるので精一杯だと思います。あなたが一番よくお分かりだと思いますけど。
The reality of when you have a near masterpiece, master level episode of any anime, and especially if it's the first of its kind within the show, right? Like you might be watching a show and it's really good and really enjoyable, but then they just have this one episode that just elevates everything and just really changes the trajectory of the show, your opinion, everything else. Well, for me, when it comes to the Aristocrat, right, Reincarnated as Aristocrat anime, that was last week's episode. Now, what I will say, you know, and be very clear, I was looking for the episode number, is we're 8 episodes in, and from the beginning, from the onset, I have really liked this show. I don't think it's setting it like I don't think it's setting the anime world ablaze or anything, but I do think this is one of the hidden gems that if people were to give it time this season, I do think it would hook them. And I do think that there's enough here to really say like, this is one of those ones that like would be in front of a lot of other shows that might have people watching it instead. And I hope that kind of makes sense. Like, I just really think it's one of those hidden gem shows of the season, even though it is a, you know, isekai anime. But going back to how I started the video, you know, last week was just such a masterful episode. It's almost impossible to really follow that episode up. And I will tell you, like, when I watched this episode, I think it was another good episode of Aristocrat, but it was nowhere near the untouchable star that was last week's episode. Like, everything I want from an episode was last week. And, you know, nailing writing, direction, animation, conveying emotion, dialogue, voice acting. Like, last week's episode, just everything came together. And when an anime can invoke a really, really strong emotion in you, you know you're watching something really good. So I have to give it grace when I say that this episode wasn't really that good of an episode. It was a good to decent episode, but it's no surprise when you are following up an episode of the caliber of last week. So this episode, kind of the string of events that occurred is, it starts off with R's meeting with all of his father's confidants and the people of the empire, the country, whatever, that they're partnered with, you know, under the king or whatever. And they're deciding what course of action they're going to take next, as they need to go and invade. And there's an onset of war because there's the two factions of the princes and stuff. And their faction, they need to go and make some headway. So they're going to invade this one specific territory. And Rs proposes that, hey, let's not do that. Let me handle some stuff because some things aren't adding up. And let me get back to you guys, and then we can make our decision. We find out that was because his group, you know, his group of confidants went in, and they were like, hey, something is not right here. Like something feels off. And, you know, this country or this territory shouldn't be pushing back at the level that they are. Something feels wrong. We need to find out. So, Rossell, or whatever his name is, a little kid, you know, is like, we need to figure this out before we make our move. So Reitz goes and says, hey, there's these mercenary company. They're called the Shadows, blah, 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 blah. And we need to go hire them. Their specialty is espionage and finding information. So as the episode starts off, R's presenting that, getting clearance for that. Then we go into Charlotte, and Charlotte goes and she gets to visit her kids, you know, the adoptive kids, the orphan kids. And R's has set up a orphanage for them, and that has been funded pretty much by Charlotte ever since. And we get some really cool moments there. And eventually, Licia comes in, and because she's been, chomping at the bits to see ours. So she comes in, very cute stuff. We get presented with all that there. Then we go on to the next portion, which is the last portion of the episode, where ours is going to now meet with the shadow people. And we get informed by Reitz that, hey, they have a new commander, and they're operating at a level never seen before. And we get to meet that commander. I think R said or this lady said her name, or this man. I think it's a boy, right, or a man or something. Their name is Moretz. No, okay. So yeah, it says their name was Moretz, but they now go by Fam. So this person's name is now Fam. And this dude, he runs the mercenary company, and because of all the different things that happens, he ends up taking their jobs. And he's gonna, he's like, give them 5 days, and I'll get your info. And that leads us into the next episode. So overall, I think this episode was pretty good for bringing in the next pillar that needs to fall, like the next big plot line, which is the war, the Princess faction, what's happening. It brought in the next enemy, which is this territory of, it starts with a P, Pinion, Pephion, something like that. It brings in the next main character, this Fam character, this Fam character, leader of the shadows. And then it brought us closer with, Licia and with Charlotte, as they continue to vie for Ars's love there. So, the episode did do a lot, but entertainment value-wise, because that's kind of how I look at the shows, entertainment-wise, I was mildly entertained by the episode. I would say, again, much like a lot of other anime, if this episode was smushed in while you're binging and it was just another episode as you're watching all 12, this episode doesn't even, get on your radar because we're moving on to that next big moment. But because we have to wait a week, we have to ingest it, and we have to, all that stuff. And I think this was a very 6.5 out of 10 episode in comparison to last week's 10 out of 10 episode. But overall, this is still like this whole show is rocking a 7.5, a good 7.5 out of 10, maybe 8, from people who are really mega fans, I would say. But overall, been a really good experience. But, this episode just, of course, like I said, just doesn't measure up to last week. But overall, I enjoyed the episode. I had a good time with it. It just wasn't, it was fine, overall. So let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. Leave me a like. Do me that huge favor. Interested to see on what your guys' thoughts are, negative and positives. I know if you're, 8 weeks into the show, you're like me, you're a fan of the show. So let me know what you guys think. And of course, I'll see you guys next week for episode number 9, right? Yep. 9 weeks. Yep. 9. All right. See you then. Peace.